With this, I would now like to invite the dignitaries to come up on stage. Mr. Munish Sudan, Head Intellectual Property and Technology Intelligence, Tata Steel. Mr. Ramesh Rao, Senior Director, Engineering, Qualcomm, San Diego Office. Mr. Ignacio D. Medrano Caballero, Head of Promotion of the IP System, European Union Intellectual Property Office. Mr. Vijay K. Vijay Raghavan, President, Society for Technology Management STEM. Ms. Roberta Romano Goish, Chief Sustainability Officer, European Patent Office. Dr. Sujata Shishandharan, Co-founder and Director, Digital Transformation Basis Fund Service Private Limited. Mr. Dinesh Narayanan Kuti, Global Head, Patent Search Analytics, Clarivate. May I request Mr. Dinesh to please come up on stage? May I now request Mr. Munish Sudan to take the session forward. Over to you, please.
Hello. I would request everyone to please settle down so that we can start the session. We are already running late, so good morning, everyone, and a very warm welcome to all of you. I'm your moderator for this session, and I feel privileged sitting among the pioneers and the experts in their own fields. And we'll be speaking on a theme which has gone beyond law books and laboratory ventures, and I must say it's a core of technology leadership, strategic IP management from deep tech era perspective. And before we start our conversation on this particular topic, I think it's important that we reflect upon the landscape we are living in. And ladies and gentlemen, we are not witnessing an incremental change. We are going through another industrial revolution. An industrial revolution where AI is inventing new capabilities every day, where quantum is redefining what's possible, where biotechnology is editing life's code, where advanced materials are transforming the way manufacturing is happening. And I must say, the digital platforms are actually inventing new economical realms. And in this environment, the most important currency is just not capital. And not even the raw data. I would say it's structured and protectable innovation. And if this is so, the question for every leader, every entrepreneur, every policymaker is no longer do we have IP, but it is how strategically we manage IP creation, valuation, and IP protection. And from a technology roadmap, I see it from three perspectives and three lenses, starting from creation. The how part of innovation, that's what we call creation, is fundamentally shifting. And let me just spend some time in telling you how it's shifting. No longer you will see an IP coming out of a single inventor invented in a closed R&D lab. Increasingly, you see IP coming synergistically, collaboratively in ecosystem, panning across startups, SMEs, large firms, and that's a reality. And all these practical realities actually forces us to rethink and ask practical questions. How do we decide inventorship in this distributed environment? Do we have mechanisms to document this distributed inventorship? Are the age-old incentivization mechanisms are still relevant in this new paradigm? And my take on this is very simple and straightforward. I think it's high time that we defy our older assumptions and adopt new ways of creating IP, co-inventing in ecosystems. The second lens, when we talk about strategic IP management, is about IP valuation. Arguably, the greatest challenge and opportunity in today's time is how do we value these different kinds of intellectual property? We have patents covering a quantum algorithm whose commercial feasibility might pan out maybe a decade later or maybe several years down the line. Similarly, how would you value a proprietary data set? How would you price artificial intelligence model or a sustainable manufacturing process? Our traditional valuation model actually strain under these uncertain conditions. But yet, IP valuation is still very relevant because it underpins partnership, it gives you bargaining power for licensing and mergers and acquisition. And the third lens when we talk about strategic IP management perspective in deep tech era is protection. And when we talk about intellectual property protection in deep tech era, I would say the stakes are existential. And why is so? In this hyper-connected world and digital world, your crown jewel innovations are prone to get mimicked, copied, and reverse engineered. And hence, you need protection strategies which are dynamic, which are multi-layered, and more importantly, technologically aware. So digital management rights, cyber security for your trade secrets, smart templates for licensing, and increasingly a complex patent landscape that we see every day increasing. All these are very pertinent when we devise our protection strategies. And if we do so, then I would say the IP doesn't remain a passive legal right. It becomes a tool for negotiation. It gives you barrier to entry, and more important, it gives you a pillar strength for your technological sovereignty. And when we synergistically take into consideration the purposeful IP creation, astute valuation, and robust protection, and we wove all these threads together, we will have the right way of moving forward. This would set the direction in terms of how we should shape up our national strategy on technology. This is how we should shape the investors. This is how we should shape our future R&D strategy. To discuss all this, we have a very elite panel, and we were discussing in the morning, this is one of the most diverse panel that we have seen. We have people with purely tech backgrounds, with academic backgrounds, and we have people from European Patent Office, from IP analytics company, and Qualcomm, high-tech companies. So we'll be touching upon the strategic IP management aspects from deep tech era perspective. So I'll request each one of the panelists to give their opening remarks, and then thereafter we'll take up some question answer. So let me start with Dinesh. So Dinesh comes from Clarivate, and he's the global head of IP and analytics for Clarivate. So, yeah.
Thank you, Munish. And good afternoon to everyone. And Munish touched upon a lot of key pointers. In fact, I was exchanging some, we were having a conversation, me, Munish, Roberta, earlier today on this question of inventorship, right? With deep tech, one of the main frontiers in deep tech, of course, as all of you know, we discuss that in every organization, is about AI. This is going to, deep tech, I think, primarily because of AI, will proliferate, will require us to transform the way we work, whether we are an organization, whether we are a research institute, whether we are patent offices. It will require us to reinvent and transform the way we work, not only within our organizations, but as to how we collaborate as well. And like Munish mentioned, right, I also agree with him that IP, we've all long discussed that IP should be at the forefront. It should be linked with strategy, but that was more of an aspiration earlier, but now it is a necessity. If your strategy teams, if your R&D function, if your IP organization and your product teams are not aligned, you will not only miss out, you will become obsolete. That is what we are facing with the advent of the deep tech era. If you look at the kind of investments that are happening from the deep tech space, it is expected to go, the data and infrastructure investments, up to $5 trillion. That is more than the GDP of Germany by 2030. That is the amount of capital that's going to be invested. And IP plays a crucial role in this, like Munish exactly mentioned. How do you protect your investment, right? Because with IP protection, apart from creation, is a strategic tool. That's how you use IP. So going forward, how are you going to align yourself? How are you going to collaborate? And with the current geopolitical context, with conflicts over the last 5 to 6 years, collaboration is the last thing in everybody's mind, whether it's governments. It's going to be a challenge. It's going to be a Herculean task. But if we don't collaborate effectively, you will not only miss out, but as I said, right, there is a chance of you becoming obsolete, not really relevant in the conversations ahead, regardless of your industry. So some are calling the deep tech era as the next phase of industrial revolution, not evolution per se. And how we are prepared, I mean, I'm going to speak from the perspective of the IP organization. That's where I have all my experience over the last 20 years. And I'm happy to listen to all the other panelists as to what they have to say as well. Hand over to Roberta.
Thank you, Dinesh. Let me turn to left side and invite Dr. Sujata. Dr. Sujata is Director of IT Product and Process and a majority shareholder at Basis Fund Services. So she's a technocrat with leadership experience. Request for your opening remarks.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Munish. Thank you, CII, for both the award recognition for my company as well as for giving me an opportunity to speak here. I come from the core IT, software background, deep tech background, and I both agree and disagree with a lot of things that are being said about women in STEM. That apart, I would like to say that why are we discussing this topic with so much of depth itself is a hint to what is happening around IP. What happens now and henceforth in the world is going to be about owning up and owning one of the biggest property that we cannot see, our intelligence, right? When artificial intelligence is knocking on the door, we better be very careful about what is our proprietary, our own inherent intelligence. This comes into play because everybody out there is creating code, including AI. So from the perspective of software, it is very critical for us to take charge of the situation at this point because IP and ownership of it contributes to the biggest thing for which we all work. All of us work for money. All of us work for profits. Of course, there are other altruistic reasons to our work, but we are all looking to maximize profit. So what happens is that intellectual property has now become the single biggest differentiator to a company's success or failure. Right? That is the reason why we are discussing this, and this is also the reason why it has become crucial in evaluating a company's performance as well as a lot of other things. I mean, all of us, many of us who seek funding, many of us who seek to even offer it as a collateral for funding, you have IP coming in there in a big way because we are now taking charge of that one differentiator to success or failure, which is IP in our scenario in this world today. Because rest of all of it, we've probably spoken about it, we've probably actioned it, and actioned it well. We are on path of success. India itself is on path of success in a lot of domains. Now what needs to be done is for us to be able to take charge of our intelligence before AI. Because, you know, one of the things that also happens in software specifically is it is very difficult to now differentiate between innovation that AI did and innovation that a human did. You know, that's a big challenge in my line of things. So what we are faced with is because we need to take charge of the differentiator, because innovation is the only way forward for success henceforth. And I was speaking at an event where there were very senior people, and I heard one of the opening remarks speak about how we shiver on sight of digitization and computers and stuff like that. I would like to say that I was in a room full of women like that, and they are being challenged to get in AI, and these women don't know what to do. I studied innovation adoption for my doctorate, and very simply put, the word innovation means doing something differently from what hitherto exists. So it doesn't have to be technology alone. IP is, lot of times, most successful IPs are a combination of technology and domain. And that is what brings IP sharply into focus, I believe, at these times. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sujata. You touched upon a very nice point, and in fact, when this topic of IP from a deep tech era perspective was thrown, I was brainstorming with myself why there is so much of emphasis given to IP from deep tech era perspective. And typically when you work in large corporates and you see IPs around products and processes, and often we talk about collaterals for IP, it doesn't work in that conventional setup. But when we talk about deep tech era, the whole basis of deep tech is potential for future. The equity investors, the government funding agencies, they will all bank upon what this deep technology means from a futuristic potential perspective. And that's where IP corresponding to deep tech era is an ideal case for collateral for funding. And that's where I think the real differentiation would happen in the financial structure also in coming years. Let me move to Ms. Roberta Romano. She is a doctorate, and she's Chief Sustainability Officer at European Patent Office. And she carries plethora of experience in ESG, intellectual property strategy, innovation, and corporate sustainability. So over to you.
And because I am happy to move a lot and I will breach the law, I will have a small presentation for you because I think images are stronger than words. So bear with me. So thanks a lot, Manish. We've heard a lot of very wise words, and I think one thing in common we all have is that innovation is key, right? So I am Roberta Romano, you can call me Roberta, European Patent Office. I wanted to come in this panel with this new perspective. We all know IP, and we know IP protect innovation. Patents protect innovation. We at the EPO, through one process, one procedure, one file, can give protection to up to 46 countries. And that's great. That means that innovators are protected. But what is often overlooked is that patents' role goes well beyond just protection. And this is why I want to reflect together with you on the role of patents as an asset for achieving the UN SDGs. I think we have reached a special time in history for the whole world, for the society, for every business. The COVID pandemics, climate change, the impact of climate change, the energy crisis, all these pose huge challenges to all of us and to humanity. And as we all know, going green and reducing our CO2 emissions requires a lot of efforts from every of us, but more, it requires an effort from society, but from the way we live, we work. So how are we going to do this? How will we have to do things differently? How will this work? Well, innovation is the key, right? Innovation must undeniably be an important part of the answer. Yes, an important part of the answer. We see that companies, and we heard in the last 2 days how companies invest more and are invited to invest more in technologies for the future, for the progress. Inventors, big, small, innovators. Well, actually, the EPO does promote innovation as a force for good. We are deeply convinced that if we support innovators in their efforts to solve the problems, the technical problems, the global challenges, and contribute to the UN SDGs, we will be there. We will be in a safer, a smarter, and a more sustainable world. In fact, the EPO, I think facts actually speaks for themselves. If you have a read to the 2024 WIPO Mapping Innovation Reports, Patents and the UN SDGs, it shows that 42.4% of active European patents filed through the EPO are related to the SDGs, 42.4%. So this is the crucial core of innovation, right? Now, we are committed to sharing patent knowledge in many ways, because I was saying, patents surely protects innovators and the geography, right? But there's a second part. It's the publication of patents that gives access to patent knowledge. It's the access to all the wealth of technical information in patents put at the disposal of the world. So we thought, all right, how can we make this, how can we help society to, in a few ticks, in a few clicks, access easily this information? So this is our societal commitment. We are convinced that sharing patent knowledge from east to west 24/7 is helping innovators to solve puzzles, define their IP strategies, and take innovation further. So we do this in different ways. One of this is our SPASnet. We see it on the left. Our SPASnet database, open to everyone. It contains over 160 million documents, and in the past years, we received over 18 million visits. The European Patent Register gives access to, for you to see at what point is an application, for example. But I'd like to move quickly to the training arm, our European Patent Academy, with over 135 courses online, digital. We could serve 26,000 long-life learners in 2024. And actually, the great thing, we're talking about digital transformation and IT. We're very delighted to see that over 50% were female participating to further education. These type of courses cover intellectual property courses as well as technology-focused courses. So essentially what we believe is that patent knowledge is the secret ingredient helping innovators to develop novelty and inventive step and contribute it to the UN SDGs. Now, if we zoom on innovation in particular, we do this in different ways. We join forces, and joining forces was the magic word used from Manish earlier, but also yesterday by Dr. Forbes. Joining forces in the race for a more sustainable world. We do this, for example, with technology platforms or with studies on emerging technologies and looking at patent trends, because patent trends have this power of sharing knowledge. So equally, we have been focusing on where we believe are the highest challenges, the most burning challenges for humanity. So we've been looking at, for example, with our platforms, we've been looking into renewable energies, energy transition technologies, building a greener future, water technologies to face floods and drought. We know what happens around us, and technologies for addressing microplastics, or new frontiers in oncology. And let me say a few words on our latest technology platform, the one in agriculture. For those of you who were yesterday here, we had real great testimonials from an entrepreneur in agriculture who found great solutions to address the monsoons and the uncertainty of the climate changes bringing to agriculture through digital agriculture. So we felt it's impelling for us to give you a platform that you can easily access with a few clicks and understand what are the most important trends and the patent innovation in this part. We know also that for India, more than 50% of the Indian population relies on farming, according to the World Economic Forum. right? And FAO predicts that for a population of 9.6 billion people in 2050, we will need to increase the food production by at least 60%. So how will this be possible? Digital agriculture innovation is the key. And by the way, I rely on a lot of ladies here to take the step to bring us there, and congratulations for your awards. So in these platforms, we have 45 ready-made searches to help you consult innovation in this field. We cover plant agriculture, we cover artificial growth conditions. We heard how important it is yesterday. A third chapter on livestock management. And the last but not least, and possibly one of the most relevant, is supporting technologies such as watering or influencing weather conditions, pest control. So all this at the fingertips of everyone, practitioner, scientists, but also policymakers. So we believe that this will have a great contribution to the UN SDG 2, Zero Hunger. In addition, we provide economic studies on the trends, as I said. So it's a great help to see what are the trends in innovation and what is really bringing the extra mile to reach the SDGs. Here we have collected in this report 41 initiatives at the EPO mapped on 11 UN SDGs on different technologies. So I really recommend, if you want to have a look and access easily targeted information on targeted technologies, do have a look at this. A few words also on our Deep Tech Finder. That's another addition on how we give access to information. Deep Tech Finder is a tool open to everyone at the epo.org webpage. And here what we bring is a view to the ecosystem of small, medium enterprises having at least one European patent in Europe, but also investors according to technology fields, so you can connect with startups in Europe and perhaps start partnerships. And equally, we have information on universities and research institutions. So again, opportunities to collaborate and join forces for the goals. For us, platforms, studies, and such tools like the Deep Tech Finder reflect exactly how we see the patent system, going beyond the classical role of geographical protection. But it's the broader role of supporting innovation and investment in scientific and technological breakthrough. And of course, I cannot help, but I need to say, I will just jump this one. I need to say that let's remember that every patent application, every innovation has a person behind it, at least one, or has a team behind. We saw many here today. It's people with a passion for discovery, brilliant people with a passion to solve puzzles and improve our daily lives. And we celebrate this every year at the European Inventor Award, and I want to share with you how impressive inventors from India have shaped the world. Let me mention Ashok Gajli and Vikas Garud. Apologies for my pronunciation. Hey, they invented a UV water disinfectant requiring only 40-watt UV light to disinfect 1,000 liters of water per hour. So you can imagine the impact. Professor Arogyasamy Paulraj, pioneering invention of a faster wireless. We wouldn't have the 5G LTE today without him. Imagine the impact of this invention. And finally, the Indian-American chemist Sumita Mitra, very dear to me, a great lady. She was the first one to use nanotechnology at a time where everybody thought, how will this be used, this new technology? Well, she created fillings for the tooth, restoring smiles on a technology nobody thought it would ever happen, making also dental repair much more affordable. So essentially, with myriads of inspiring examples, I could spend the 3 days here today speaking about inspiring inventors. Innovation is a force for good, for solving humanity's greater challenges. I think we all agree to that. We hope that with novel ideas, with the many inventions protected by IP, one of the greatest achievements will be really the achievement of the UN SDGs. I apologize if it took a little long, and thank you.
Thank you, Roberta. I think you made a very pertinent point when you talked about access through European Patent Office. And I think when we talk about patents, often we always see patents from protection lens. But by way of its construction, patent act as an information mechanism. So, and that's, I don't know how many of us actually leverage patents from that angle. It's a great marketing tool also, just to popularize your invention sitting here across the world. So, thank you. Let me turn to Mr. Vijay, and he's president at Society for Technology Management. Along with that, he's also chairman of Sadhguru Management Consultant and a faculty at Cornell University. So he carries decades of experience providing consulting in agriculture industry, and I think you're rightly placed after Roberta that way.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Manishji. You know, the patents are the underlying currency for life sciences industry. So the way the fundamental patents are created from discovery, these are foundational patents on which many, many products are developed. Largely, the foundational patents come from very deep investments. You know, earlier, of course, through life sciences discovery, but now combining AI, ML to life sciences discovery, a lot of it has become information, rich discovery pathway today. So the foundational patents provide pathway for creating downstream drugs, downstream products in agriculture, and all life sciences, animal health, etc. 2/3 of the foundational patents earlier vested with US and 4 other European countries, because they all require somewhere between $80 to $100 million investment with a failure rate of almost about 8 out of 10. 2 of them emerged to be successful downstream products there. The foundational patent holders, when the products get to the market, they capture 2/3 of the value. The manufacturers who are licensees of that capture about 1/3 of the value. So India has been in the 1/3 bracket. We've been excelling in the 1/3 bracket, but 2/3 we have not been present at all. We have been very good, effective manufacturers, exploiting the patent cliff. As they get out of the patent regime, we do generics in the country. We are leading in the world in that. China has also been doing that, but last 10 years, China has been making deep tech investments. They have now got almost 1/3 of the foundational patents in life sciences. And last year, they actually surpassed the US in out-licensing revenue of the primary drug candidates. They almost got about $50 billion revenue from out-licensing, foundational patents, which is a remarkable change that you see. The reason is that they've been investing almost $50-60 billion a year consistently for the last 8 to 10 years. In India, we invest about $500 million cumulatively. That's about 1/20th of China in the public research and the private system. Public research is about 300 million, private sector is about 200 million. Our investment is mostly in downstream investments, typically speaking. So what China has done is they converted low-cost human capacity to discovery capacity. And that's been possible because of the funding, deep tech investments, converging investments. So the other element of foundational patents in life sciences is that many of them come from public research system. I mean, even if you look at COVID, 80% of COVID vaccines came from public research, Oxford University, MIT, all of that. So the public research does foundational discovery, passes it to industry to translate it. So cumulatively, they invest, 20-30 million from public research per candidate, and then 3 or 4 times of that by the industry there. Chinese have geared that, that seamless collaboration that Munishji talked about. No drug candidate is solely created today. You look gene editing patents today. They're a combination of institutions that have created it. So far, I think they've earned almost about $8 to $9 billion from one invention as such, passing over to a lot of licensees who develop products from that. So this is where we are. The foundational patents are essential. If you have to be moving into the upstream value chain, we need to get there. In terms of quantum investment, these are mind-boggling. There is also a symbiotic challenge. The more investments you put, more IP you create. The more IP you create to attract more investments. That's where it's a loop that one countries get stuck today. We need to get out of the loop, get the quantum investment to come in. We've been trying in India. I think even the RDI is a good platform, but you look at comparative investments, the whole of RDI gets into just life sciences deep tech in 1 year in those countries there. So we look at that quantum jump that are really essential today for foundational patents if you have to get to the orbit ourselves today. Yeah.
Thank you. In fact, a very interesting takeaway for me, largely when we talk about deep tech, we talk about high tech. We talk about artificial intelligence, we talk about quantum. Agriculture takes a backseat, but the numbers that you just discussed, I think nobody can imagine that the value creation can happen through deep research in agriculture. But I think we are an agricultural-led country. I think this is definitely a focus area. This should be a focus area for us.
In fact, a lot of students, even in Cornell today, they don't go to the farm to learn agriculture. They sit before the systems. Every organ is sequenced today, right? You have the whole lot of information today. That's what happens.
Thank you. So let me hand over to Mr. Ramesh Theo, and he's a technocrat. He's a senior director engineering at Qualcomm, working in San Diego office, and he carries experience in mobile SoC and wireless communication. So over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Manish. I wanted to start by giving you a background of what IP means to many different countries. IP is well recognized in India. It's a very favorable environment for IP. There's a lot of awareness of IP in this country now. People understand the monetary value of having IP, fundamental IP, research, manufacturing, agri-tech, across many different sectors. It is widely prevalent. But let me narrate a very funny story that happened not too long ago. A few months ago, we had hosted a delegation. I'll not name names here just to make it a little more interesting. We hosted a continent with a continent-sized delegation, which had about 50 different countries represented. These were policymakers. These were people in the governments that actually made decisions on spectrum, made decisions on the way the networks in the country would evolve, et cetera, et cetera. You can probably guess who that organization is, but let me leave it anonymous for now. We were presenting our IP story, which is intellectual patent story, and we were telling them of our global programs, which actually help generate a lot of IP for the startups that participate in our incubation programs. So we started with that story, we explained to them, and then we got into specific countries, and we were talking about how certain IP policies have actually helped accelerate the production or the creation of IPs in those countries. There was one person in the audience who was visibly upset with this comment, and he basically said, how come these policies were in my country and I never knew about these IP policies? And then it took a few minutes of back and forth, and then we realized this person was talking about internet protocol, and we were talking about intellectual patents, right? Or intellectual property. So there is a lot of disconnect in the world. So IP doesn't mean IP everywhere. Fortunately, India is not in that situation. But when we started our India programs, we started in 2016, and IP at the startup level was still not very fashionable. Right? It was something that we had to really prod the startups to figure out why they are not filing IPs, what we can do to help and accelerate their IP filing procedures, et cetera. So when we started in 2016, we had we basically take 10 startups a year. We bring them onto our programs. We have global programs, and then our global programs net anywhere between 100 startups a year across 15 different countries. And in India, we basically do about 10 startups per year, maybe 20 in some instances, et cetera. And we basically started working with them. One of the advantages of working with us on this program is an equity-free program. We don't take any equity in the IP that is filed by the startups. And these are all deep tech startups. And we actually released a report on yesterday. It's about the Indian ecosystem and the relevance of deep tech IP in this Indian context. I encourage you to definitely read that report. You will see some mind-boggling statistics on what we have been able to create in our small way. So as part of this disclosure, right, we basically started working with the startups from 2016. And then every year we started giving them a patent filing incentive. This is no equity. We don't take any equity. There's no hooks to this. Basically, they come up with their idea. They don't have to disclose the IP to us. All we insist on is a filing receipt at whichever patent organization they choose to file. We gradually started to see a shift in mentality, right? Over the last 10 years, I'm happy to report that our startups have basically filed somewhere, we had 150 startups go through our program. 88 of them actually filed IP. And the net was basically about, we had a lot of patents, and foundational patents that came out of some of these works. So we, in our own way, felt that a lot of the things that we're doing was helping, and we replicated this program across several parts in the world. It's almost a cookie cutter program. We figured out what works here, took it, improvised on it, and then in the next iteration, followed it up with another localized version of it, etc. Later on, I'll get into how we actually are looking for patents and what we do there. But overall, globally, we've been able to yield about 1,400 patents almost with the 300 startups that we've incubated globally in the last 10 years. I'd like to stop here and then continue and pick up with the rest of the questions.
Thank you, Ramesh. I do have a question how you engage with startup, but I think we can take it later. So let me turn to Mr. Ignacio, and he's head of promotion of IP system at European Union Patent Office. He's carrying decades of experience, and he's also a teacher, lecturer in various academic institutes. So over to you.
Thank you, Munish, and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you to CII for hosting us here today. First of all, Munish, you talk about diversity on this panel. I want to provide a little bit of that diversity. First of all, because of the office that I come from, is the European Union Intellectual Property Office. Just to explain a little bit the IP ecosystem in Europe, Roberta belongs to the European Patent Office, also a supranational organization granting only patents. In my case, it's another office, it's another institution that it is in charge of protecting at the level of the European Union trademarks, designs, and since 1st December this year, also geographical indications for handicraft. So this is the first message that I wanted to convey here. Innovation, high-tech innovation, of course, it's patents, it's technological innovation, but it is also commercial and creativity. This is something that I think we should have a look to the innovation in a holistic way, in which everything needs to be not only protected, but also used as a facilitator. That's intellectual property. If you look to this object, it is, of course, a lot of patents here. But there's also design. There is a trademark that we know all, and there is a lot of commercial innovation in what, in this case, Apple has done during the years. So this is a little bit what an IP office as mine is looking at. We have been for many years, and we continue, of course, it's our core business to protect. That's the protection, enforcement is important in intellectual property. But we want to go beyond that. And this is a little bit the task that they have granted to me at the office, to think about my office on a business development perspective, how we can provide added value to the users of the systems, that's companies all over the world, on the titles that we grant, on the IP rights that are provided by the office. For that, a specific unit has been created that wants to think about intangibles, not only again, as protection, but as something that create value in the market. This is something that it will be related very much to IP valuation that we were talking before, IP-backed finance, what on how we can encourage financial institutions to take into consideration intellectual property rights as financial instruments. You were saying, Munish, at the beginning that, of course, IP valuation is very important for calculating on mergers and acquisitions the value of the assets of a company. It is something that we look at it also on the perspective of startups and maybe companies that they just have the only value that they have at the very beginning is intangibles. And they are knocking on the door of banks, and at least in Europe, that's the experience that we are facing, and they are not able to have any financing through their intangibles. And this is, of course, complicated for them to jump and to try to put the products that they are developing in the markets. So this is, we want to, again, using intellectual property as a facilitator to try to support these elements. This comes very much in the context of the world that we are living, that we were discussing before, of the competitiveness that it is needed through innovation. And I think the situation in India and the situation in the European Union is quite similar. We have seen that there is an innovation gap. In our case, there's been very important reports that we are considering very much on the policies for the next years in Europe. One developed by a former Prime Minister from Italy and Governor from the Central European Bank, Mario Draghi, and another one by Enrico Letta, another Prime Minister from Italy, and stating clearly this. There's an innovation gap between Europe and some other operators in the market. I think I heard a little bit in the last 2 days the same situation here. And what can we do? And how IP can help in order to bridge this gap of that we are looking at. This is something that we consider that also trade is extremely important, and I want to mention here, of course, the free trade agreement that is currently negotiated between India and the European Union that can help maybe to join forces to create synergies among companies in order to bridge this innovation gap. For this, again, coming back to intellectual property, of course, we think, and this is also a little bit the message that I want to convey, how important it is for those companies that here in India are considering to internationalize, to export to the European Union, to protect their brands and to have their designs and all their IP rights protected before jumping in this I would say, clearly path that it is going to happen for many Indian companies and the possibilities and opportunities that is going to be created through the free trade agreement. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nishu, for giving a very different perspective, trademarks. So I just wanted to ask, was GA not part of the earlier statute?
Sorry?
The geographical indication?
No, up to now, we just have in Europe geographical indications for spirits, foodstuff, and wines. That was a little bit, and it was managed by the European Commission in Brussels. But we didn't have any registry for protecting handicraft. This was a very, let's say, a very sensitive issue when negotiating free trade agreements with countries such as India, that has such a variety of handicrafts protected as GIs. We were not able to protect it because we didn't have a registry. So this has just happened a few days ago, 16 days ago. Now, if the FTA is concluded and the annex on the IP chapter that states a list, or will state a list of Indian handicrafts to be protected, it will be possible because of this register that it is now in force.
Interesting to know that we are ahead in certain forms of intellectual property. So, so let me have a few questions I want to learn from each one of you, carrying, I think, decades of experience. Let me just, Dr. Sujata, this question. And this is out of curiosity, for sure. I just want to understand how it works in real time. I'm a person with chemical and metallurgy background, so So in deep tech, of course, we talk about proprietary algorithms, you talk about firmware, simulation code, which are kind of a crown jewels for any company working in that particular industry. But we see that nowadays developments happening through public GitHub repositories, AI assist coding platforms like Copilot and others. So how do you manage IP risk in such an environment?
Thank you for that very interesting question. I'll answer this question from the two companies that I own. So the first one is Basis Fund Services, for which we received the award today. Now, Basis is a 21-year-old company. Basis bought fund administration to India. We were in India before the fund started in India. And most of our clients are European and US majors in the fund business. Most of the other companies that are in fund administration in India today have people we trained. So all of them have got our people sitting there. So you can't do, my point is, you can't do anything about that leakage of information or training and intelligence that happens there. That is not pluggable. Then what is pluggable and what you can do about it is to stay ahead of the game. So how did we manage and how do we do this? So I take care of digital transformation for my organization. There were two major weapons that we used in Basis, which are very difficult to replicate. Point number one, I come from the tech background and there's nothing, for me, algorithm is holy. So I algorithmized accounting processes, literally. That's what I did. I think I invented a word also there. So I algorithmized accounting processes, put it into SIPOC, SOP formats of Six Sigma architecture. This helped us in being the first and probably the only fund administrator in the world which is SSAE certified. We have been SOC certified since the last 15 years. And we continue, we are recently even Type 2 certified. Type 2 is even more excruciating to do. We are also ISO certified. So our processes helped us with those certifications. And the second and the most important thing where the Basis edge works is, well, I won't claim that I am into AI yet, but our processes are automated beyond belief. I actually have a software that automates private equity accounting. Now, this is very difficult to automate. It's very difficult to write. It takes a maintenance almost at the rate of once every 2-3 months because that's how fast the industry changes. So that's the only way to keep ahead of the tech game and the tech challenges. I have shared this always and everywhere, even when I taught technology entrepreneurship. The way to stay ahead of the game is to continuously innovate. You have to be on top of your game. You have to be very much in touch with the market. You have to sense this too and literally come up with a commonality between two very significant factors in a company like mine, which is tech-enabled. First, organization goals, and the second, IP strategy goals. You have to do it. You have to create them. You have to identify the gaps. You have to align the two and then come up with a strategy around it. It works. It works every time. It's not easy. Easy is nothing because, Basis Fund Services stood there with major brands. Most are the winners. I'm so happy to see that my third child, which is Basis Fund Services, stood there with brands like the Tatas and JSW, and I am like, oh God, that was something. That comes from the differentiation you achieve with being able to automate whatever was your intellectual property. So that is the gap that I'm talking about. And the second example I would like to give to answer your question is, I hold a patent to a software product called Basis Master Draft. Now, this is a product which automates, it's a Best Innovation Award winner in several forums. It automates contracts and agreements. The reason I'm bringing this up here is because patents for a software product are very difficult to achieve. Simply because you're going to have to do a lot more because it's intellectual in the sense that it is invisibly intellectual. You have product-based automations, product-based innovations and intellectual property. They are easier to prove. As a person who has done it for a software product, I can tell you that you have to differentiate your product, and that again brings you down to the point of where you differentiate it from the other products that exist in form of what you have achieved as an IP there, right? So Basis Master Draft has been in business for the last 2 years with great success. A lot of people who use it for automating their contracts and agreements come back to us saying, great product. My point here is, where did the product have its genesis? Its genesis was where we ourselves had problems with drafting contracts and agreements. So from there started an effort to come up with a tech solution to it. So that, for me, whenever I taught innovation, I studied it in my doctorate, as I had mentioned, we start with a problem statement and we innovate around it. This innovation has to be technically, technologically, softwarely enabled, and then you come up with an idea. It's very important to track this process and be careful about it, because IP is money. IP costs a lot, and it has a potential to earn you a lot too, but only if you're careful in following the process. What we need to also be very careful about is that you don't fringe on others' IPs. So that also needs a continuous search, market sensitivity, and you have to keep searching to see that you are right there at the right place, you hold the right patents, and all these put together will give you that differentiation and market leadership position that Basis has managed to achieve. Thank you.
Thank you. So I think one very interesting take she mentioned about the team, and I don't know how many of us consider humans also intellectual assets. So that's a very good example that the leakage, the IP leakage risk automatically reduces when you have your own people working with your partners, your collaborators, and maybe your suppliers. Another very important aspect she's touched upon, that staying ahead. And that's also extending your IP pros, especially in areas where every 3 years, 5 years, technology is changing. The only way to maintain your market position is that you need to be ahead of the curve. Let me turn to Dinesh. Dinesh, you come from a service industry, and I just want to understand from you, all of us talking about deep tech. And I'm pretty sure you would be touched by the interventions that you might be seeing from AI, deep learning, and several other aspects. So what is the strategy for you as an organization to prepare for this level of disruption which is happening around? And how would you recommend that organizations should prepare for this level of disruption?
Thanks, Manish. I think it's an interesting question, because we face that now internally as well, as we are trying to disrupt the way we work internally as well to serve our customers better. And let me give you an example as to what will change. In the traditional IP space, you have an idea and there is some level of due diligence that happens within the R&D team. Then it becomes a more tangible concept, and you do some patentability searches or any due diligence that your organization deems fit. And then you go and draft an application, you file it using your filing strategy. That's how you go from ideation to IP currently. I think with the deep tech era, you may not have that, you might not have the luxury of time. Your competition is not going to wait for 3 or 6 months. You will lose out in this race that is happening. So you may have to do a lot of things in parallel, right? Ideation, vetting the idea, drafting things, and then having a lookout on, are you overlapping with any of your competition? Are you really going in the right direction? This has to be done simultaneously, meaning you need to make a lot of high quality decisions at a lot of pace that you did not need to do in the past. Now, this is the challenge that I think at the outset, this is the problem that most companies will try to sort out when you get into the deep tech era. It is already happening. We see that happening with a lot of our customers. So your legacy processes, your workflows, your IP management system, the way your internal teams interact, R&D, IP organizations, your inventor or development teams, that has to drastically change. There is no room for inertia anymore when it comes to the deep tech era. And there are no formal solutions, but we've identified a framework from within that we are trying to propose. And the framework entails that you need to have the expertise within your IP organization. Like, for example, whether it's any of the deep tech domains, whether it's AI, biotech, hopefully you are an organization in the domain, you can have those kind of deep tech expertise or clusters that are accessible to your IP organization to start with. And then you have to redraw your internal processes. How do we adapt? How do we make these high velocity decisions, without compromising the quality of those decisions? And that would mean that you bring AI into your organization as well. And this comes with opportunity and it comes with risk as well. I mean, Manish, we were discussing the risks that you see, that AI may not solve all the problems, but it can give you efficiencies in the right space so that your core strategy team can focus on what is absolutely required or what needs to be done. And then you also need to have some level of governance or collaborative mechanisms, so you can partner with critical third parties like research organizations, startups in some case. If you're a larger organization, that is where you're not very nimble by design, right? You're large because you have formal processes, you have some level of bureaucracy as well. Startups don't have that. So in some cases, you may need to just collaborate with a startup or even think of an acquisition strategy instead of trying to do everything organic. So you need to now have that within your organization, some kind of a lever you can access from your IP management system, for example. I mean, earlier they were all disparate, right? You have your IP management system, then there is some other team that focuses on collaboration. You got to bring all that together because collaboration is going to be key. It also comes with some risks, like, if you collaborate more, ownership and inventorship comes into question. So you got to be proactive in terms of risk mitigation and identification as well. So those are what we are thinking of, or what at least I'm recommending is you need to have a resilient IP organization that understands these risks and opportunities and thinks of reorganizing proactively. That is going to be key. And the companies that do that will definitely succeed, or will at least have it easier when that deep tech wave actually hits.
Yeah. Thank you. Let me just connect that to Ramesh. I touched that in my opening address. There's a fundamental shift, the way innovation is happening, the how part of it is. It's more and more getting co-created. And you rightly mentioned in your opening address that you work a lot with your startups. I'm pretty sure you will have a lot of collaborations happening with universities, academia, and suppliers also. And as Dinesh mentioned, when we collaborate, there are fuzzy boundaries. There are fuzzy boundaries, and innovation become distributed. So how do you manage such partnerships? Partnerships indeed are beneficial because you speed up the whole process of innovation, but at the same time, you need to also make sure that value maximization happens for your organization. So just help us understanding how do you maximize your part of value creation when you engage with a lot of the external players, which could be startup, academia, or maybe large organizations?
Yes, I think partnerships do happen at multiple levels. Like you rightly mentioned, it happens with other organizations that we enter into some strategic agreements with. We actually work with a lot of universities, we work with a lot of research institutions, and we work with startups. With the startup programs, we are very clear in what we do. We make it entirely, all of the IP that we create from this, it belongs to the startup. We don't take any equity in this, right? So the reason we do it is we want to keep the separation very clear. If we have to do this program globally and succeed and do it year after year and maintain a clean record, I think we have to clearly delineate what happens with the IP that comes out of these startup programs. And we've done that very clearly. It's spelled out in their agreements, right when they sign up for the program, when the participation agreements. It's very clearly mentioned that the IP they create will stay with their own. It doesn't transfer to us. We have no stake in that. So we clearly make sure that the startups are comfortable with that setup. We have other agreements that happen in the larger organization. Again, Qualcomm is one of the largest licensors in the world, especially on telecommunications and compute and intelligence platforms. So we keep that different completely out of this one. So the startup ecosystem, we give the equity to the startups. And the way we generate these startups, generate these patents out of these startups, we don't pick a startup asking them to file for an IP. We ask them what is the use case that they are looking to solve. So the application process involves them submitting what is their end-to-end use case. And the reason we are successful with the 600 odd patents that we've created in India with our 88 startups, like I said, over the last 10 years, is we look for opportunities where we have local companies, domestic companies who understand the lay of the land, who understand the local problems. They come to solve the problems here, right? It's very difficult for a Silicon Valley company sitting in across the ocean to actually solve a domestic problem for India. Take, for example, the unique identity, the Aadhaar program that you had here. It was done indigenously, right? There was a problem that was done indigenously. There were a lot of research minds that went into it, and the solution was made indigenously in India. And it was a huge success. It's been a very successful platform. So we look for solutions like that, which actually solve a local problem. So we invite Indian startups to solve Indian problems. That does not mean these problems are not applicable globally. But if we start with a specific problem for which we are coming up with a solution from the startups, and then figure out what are the innovativeness that goes into that process to actually generate the IPs, we find that as a way to generate IPs in a fail-safe manner. Because they're all innovative ideas, they're breakthrough sessions that happen. And again, these are all coming from the startup. We have no say in that. We only give them the technology, we give them the incentive to file for a patent, and we stay away. But we encourage the creative process, we ask them the questions, and we let them come up with the solutions. And as a byproduct of all of this work, they will end up filing a patent, and basically that is a stat that we are very proud to cite, right? Again, look at the effectiveness of the process here. We actually are looking at 150 startups, like I said, over 10 years. It's probably less than 1% of what the number of startups that are there in India today. But they have filed about 5% of the patents that are actually created in India this year, right? So if you look at 120,000 patents, we have about 600 patents coming from just less than 1% of our incubated patents. So that's a pretty proud stat that we are very happy to report here.
I think a very interesting takeaway, and this is first time I've come across such a way of value creation. You have a deep tech, you have a base foundation technology, and you are giving freedom to startups to develop user case and giving them freedom. It's an indirect way of value creation for the organization. So very interesting take on that. Let me turn to Roberta, and coming from European Patent Office, Chief Sustainability Officer, and often I'm asked this question, and I articulate my own way, but I just want to hear from you. There's a paradox between intellectual property and sustainability. And I'm just going with pure play definition. When we talk about intellectual property, the very incentivization mechanism is that you give exclusivity. On the other hand, when we talk about sustainability or impact through sustainability, you want to diffuse, say, a decarbonization technology or climate tech at a global scale, at a cheaper rate, and quickly. So how do you address this, the interplay of IP and sustainability?
So we, as a EPO, we take it from the angle of, as a patenting authority. Of course, we have no say into the enforcement and the government and how the government can alleviate, for example, the renewal fees in the countries or the implementation and the commercialization. This is a follow-up that we cannot put our mouth into. But when it comes to all technologies, green technologies, and which are crucial to address the climate changes and so on, what we try to do is really to facilitate patent knowledge. This is what we do with the platform, so that we speed up innovation. We have acceleration procedures in the office, so that, and these are open to all applicants. So for all those in need of speed, and it's not always the case, they can push for fast proceeding of the applications. And of course, we ourselves set very stringent timeliness KPIs for ourselves, so that an applicant applying with us within 4 months has a search report in their hands and can make the decision to next stage. So while this is generally applicable to all and not particularly to climate change or the biggest challenges related applications, what we do is through the platforms and so on to push on sharing knowledge and invite then inventors to take the next steps, especially along these lines.
Thank you. Let me turn to Vijay. So you have several years of experience in agriculture and tech transfer also. Do you see a change the way you have agility in tech transfer processes in, say, country like India or Asia per se? Do you have some trends? Do you see any change there?
I think the big change in life sciences, whether it's agriculture, human health, or animal health, is IP converges now. And for any product, you need a large pool of IP for you. And the platform innovations, your discovery platforms vest with somebody, those all are today licensed out to developers today. Just like IT platforms today, your software development platforms. So you take a platform like gene editing, it's licensed to everybody today. The bioproperty, the human strains or animal strains or plant genes, these are all licensed out again. But these ownership vest with different sources. A lot of platform technologies vest with academic researchers. The bioproperty vests with government entities today. And then there are process innovations, process technologies for development itself that vest with completely third kind of party there. So in any end product, about a third of the revenue will go to paying out to those who are in-licensed technologies to you. So I become more like an aggregator of innovation to get an end product there. That's what happens there. So there is whole convergence of several discoverers in a product today, and that's the new trend today that's happening. We take a COVID vaccine today, right? The COVID strain came from public source. Oxford University developed it, right? And then Oxford gave it to a number of countries. But Oxford also converged additionally about 17, 18 patents for different processes they adopted. So eventually, when we paid 200 rupees for a vaccine in India, about 120 rupees went to all those who in-licensed platforms to develop a vaccine. The manufacturer hardly gets 20, 30 rupees. That's what happens there. So it's a wide spread of revenue that goes to platform innovations. And today, that's what has cut down the development time. Even a drug discovery today, it's half the time today. Because you got all of these ready-made platforms, more on like a software development. Now we are going there, codeless development, all of that. It could even convert to that even in life sciences today. So we use several tools that are in license today. That's what happens.
I think that's another take when we talk about deep tech. Really, it would happen that it's going to be created by one player. So you will have a lot of co-creation, and when there's a co-creation, how would you maximize value for yourself? And that's where the IP become crunchy for the organizations. So it's very important that organizations do understand that in this a new era of deep tech, IP is just not from a protection per se, because the development cycles are very long, and you need to have a share in the overall value creation process so that when the value is harvested, you are also party to that.
So one of the elements, Manish, is also, if you look at life sciences, about 20% of the patents are vesting with software giants. It's a Google's, Microsoft's, and the AWS of the world who have these screening, patents with them, who have a whole lot of big data-based sequence, algorithms that can be manipulated for discovery. So that world has completely seeped into life sciences discovery today.
So, Ignacio, I just want to understand, the startups and SMEs are a big part of this deep tech development stories across the world. Like in India, we do have some, special privileges if you are from startup SMEs. Do you have some incentive mechanisms for SMEs and startups? And are these different than other countries?
Thank you, Munish. Yeah, there is several policies specialized, focused on startups and SMEs. I think and this is very similar also to the Indian economy. I mean, the backbone of the European economy is based mostly on SMEs and now on startups. There's been, just to mention and to link a little bit what has been said before, developed and adopted a startup, a scale-up strategy by the European Commission last May, in which specifically, for the first time, it has appeared intellectual property and the importance of have a methodology developed in order to have an IP valuation of the IP rights, and granted to the EU IPO the responsibility to develop it in the next 2 years. This is something that we see, again, the link and the need and the focus on startups and scale-ups, as I said, on trying to support them on these intangibles that they are developing, and it's maybe the only assets in which they can have. Still, I think there is a lot of work to be done on this field, especially, and we have some meetings last week in Brussels with the financial institutions, private and public, especially private. I mean, discussing with them, I mean, how can we, just to let you know, let's say the banking regulations in Brussels have come very rigid after the crisis that we have some years ago, and most of them, they are risk aversion on providing financing to what we said, I mean, a little bit, if it's not bricks, I mean, it's something tangible, it's very difficult for a bank to provide. How we can public institutions help a little bit on this? We are thinking about developing some guarantee schemes, guarantee instruments that provide some trust to the financial institutions, to the private financial institutions, in order to give them collaterals, to give them some loans in order to develop their programs. Another element, maybe just to mention on how we have supported SMEs startups, is with specific funding for protecting their IP rights. This is something that we have some subsidies to SMEs, up to 70% of the fees to protect their IP rights. This is similar. I think there's a similar scheme here in India developed by the Controller General or by the government in general. So this is a little bit just for them to jump into the IP ecosystem and to start having some tools, again, not only protection, that they can use beyond the protection of their intangible assets. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we have covered time allotted to us, but we can take a couple of questions. So if any one of you in the audience has any questions, please raise your hands. Can you pass on the mic, please? You can tell your name and organization you come from.
Yes, I'm Manish Sharma. I'm working as a consultant with Foresters. So my point is that we are finding that as far as patents are concerned, China is subsidizing quite a lot of them, and there's a lot of cross-licensing and patent pool that is coming up, a new trend that is coming up, which is basically creating concentration of patents, in technology, for example, in automobiles, in healthcare, in drug discovery, etc. So how will that go about with the startups, because they don't have that kind of resources, to take on that kind of, collaboration, because for example, Ericsson, through cross-licensing, basically collaborates with Huawei, etc., and the same is the case with Qualcomm, etc., with some of the Chinese already, established players, and because ultimately these, patents are going to play out in the automobile space, in the agriculture space, in the drones, etc., so that will play, basically, restrict what you call, lot of, what you call expansion, as far as for emerging markets, these, use cases for them, because the commercialization of that will be a challenge, because emerging markets don't have that kind of, pricing power to play in that kind of, game, where these big tech LLMs play, So how do you see that kind of trend, that is coming up in the global ecosystem of this cross-licensing of and monopolization of patents by these big few players, etc. Thanks.
Let me re-articulate the question if I understood correctly. You're saying China is patenting a lot, and that might create a challenge for startups from India in terms of, occupying their own space. Is that correct? Okay. Sir.
I can see in the life sciences sphere, China has been a state procurer or state licenser of innovations, platform innovations, right? Even gene editing. Almost about 1,200 licenses have been done by them. The state has been funding it, giving it to enterprises. Because individual enterprises cannot pay, $2-3 million to acquire these in-licensing opportunity, right? So state has funded it. Now, over 10 years, they've been funding it. Now they become out-licensors. A lot of, fundamental capacity has come to develop that. At some stage, you have to do that. You have to get a kind of a central access to these innovations. That state funds it, and early stage companies can access it. A lot of incubators have done it centrally, so that incubatees can access them. So that's where it is. Collectively, you'll have to access those innovations. That's where.
I just want to add to this a couple of things. See, we are naturally not, we don't have it in us to go for patents. We didn't patent our haldi doodh. We didn't even patent curcumin, which is our turmeric, which we use almost daily 10 times a day. So we don't have that tendency in us to patent. However, for startups, since the question was specifically about Startup India has got SIPP, in which there is something called DPIIT, which helps with the patents specifically for startups which need help in that. They have some rules for it, they have some number of years, you have some qualifying criteria. If you are a DPIIT recognized startup, then that SIPP support for patenting is available under Startup India. This is just FYI.
Yes. So there are mechanisms put forward by Government of India where startups are compensated if they are filing patents. In fact, there's a support for filing international patents also. But of course, you need to qualify certain criteria. If you're not aware, maybe I can pass on you the details. I think gentleman had another question.
Yeah.
Can somebody pass on the mic?
Can I? Yeah. Hello everyone, this is Preeti Kumari and I belong to Pune, Maharashtra, and I'm here representing Sanju's Technology. So basically we are CLM product, software as a service. So basically my questions is that, it's a very small questions, might be basics. So for CLM platform we are using, so which part specifically in features wise we could have IP and patent protection, because of we are using e-sign also, and we do have contract generate documentations also. We have end-to-end process flow to like sign to review to and completing contract done. So sometimes we don't have actually idea how many IP could be there, and features wise we do have. So just let us know. Thank you.
You'll have to find out what your differentiator is.
Yes, correct.
Getting an IP for software is the toughest thing to do, because it's very difficult. We are living in an era of GitHub, where code gets copied. You know, I have met and spoken to people who claim to have created an AI software, whereas I'm absolutely certain they have only subscribed to one of those AI generating, code generating software, where they're simply going to upload your process documents and come out with a code saying this is your AI code. You know, so we live in such times, and therefore, and patenting, I have a patent. So patenting for a software product, again, is very, very difficult. So I described to you what we did with the process, and I described to you what we did with our product. So protecting the intellectual property of each of a software component may depend upon the characteristics of that component itself. Whether you're talking about a process automation, whether you're talking about a product that you have created, and then again you will have to set the distinction marks there. You will have to prove how you are actually addressing an issue. There are rules that are there under the patent for software products. There are also certain rules that you have to establish if you want to register your copyright. So all of these are different. It will depend upon your product. So for that, basic bottom line is first search whether there are already other competing products which already have those patents. Unless then you will go right up to the end for your patent application and it will get rejected. Rejection is very high in this zone. So you have to be very careful there.
Hi.
Just hold on. I think
Just to add a couple of sentences on top and give the European perspective on, because of course our patent law, and we have international application coming to the desk of the European Patent Office, where we look at software. Software are patentable. It is difficult, is correct, but essentially the point is what technical problem do you solve? So you have to have a technical effect. We do not protect methods for doing business purely. However, if you solve a problem because your software, for example, decreases the consumption of electricity in a grid, that would be a perfect technical problem that you solve. So it's often a way of formulating the technical problem and the solution you offer. In that case, for Europe, it is perfectly patentable. For the US, again, they're actually more generous in patenting software, but just wanted to give you the European perspective on this.
Hi, I have a question. Here. Hello, my name is Vinayak and I represent Forscribe AI. My question is for Mr. Ramesh Rao at Qualcomm. So the question is, how does a startup begin engaging with you and your team at Qualcomm as part of the incubation program? We have been incubated at IIM Bangalore, NSR Cell, and Maruti Suzuki Innovation. We recently completed a POC at Maruti Suzuki. Being grilled for a 6-month period was amazing, one of its kind experience. But how do we re-begin or reimagine that association with Qualcomm scale and level?
Yeah, I prefer to take that question offline. Obviously, there are websites that I can point you to that have the information that you need to actually get in touch with our teams. There's an application process that you go through, and then there's a selection criteria that you have to meet before you get selected. But I can give you the specifics offline. Just meet me after the event.
Thank you.
Yeah, please.
Hi, my name is Samir Bhardwaj. I would like to have Ignacio and Roberta's view. Yesterday, Luigi mentioned about India being a developing country and hence being very strict about the patent, particularly Section 3D. She meant about the incremental value. So what are your views, this particular aspect of Section 3D in academic perspective and as well as a European perspective?
So if I get it correctly, or correct me if I'm wrong, your question is relating to technology for 3D printing?
No. There's a Section 3D.
There's a Section 3D, which is, I don't know if you're aware.
It doesn't allow patent if there's an incremental value just for the sake of it. So you need to be...
Yeah. So let me just brief you. So I'll not recite the section, but there's a Section 3D, and it's actually from a evergreening of patents perspective. So if your improvements are incremental, typically Indian Patent Office doesn't allow you. There have been landmark cases. I think it was Novartis case. Okay, it was related to anti-cancer drug, which went up to the Supreme Court, and it was rejected by Supreme Court also. I don't think if they are aware of that. But I think it's a very balanced view the Indian Patent Office has taken. Being a developed country, if you can keep on allowing evergreening of patents, you will not let the other ecosystem flourish. So of course, we can discuss and debate on this, because this has been a topic of debate for several years. But I think it's a fairly balanced view, and I think a lot of judgments have come around that. Why, and a lot of countries have also taken a cognizance of the ruling which has happened in case of Novartis. So I don't think it's a lopsided view. It's a very sustainable view from a greater good perspective. So I've been told that we are run out of time, so we have to close it. I don't think there are any pending questions as such. If there's one last question, yeah, go ahead.
Hello, good afternoon. So I'm Aishwarya Bhatt. From Biocon, but I've been in the life science sector. I've dealt with agri, bio, generics, etc., etc. But my question is the fact that a lot of startups nowadays want to jump onto the wagon of AI/ML, not knowing what it actually is, right? So we talk about deep tech as a whole, but there are subject matters like agriculture or medical devices which are solely product-based, and they want to jump on AI/ML. And they include that into their patent applications, usually without a backing for it, without any kind of support, technical support. So that's where IP as an asset comes into play, because what is the quality of the patent that we're actually looking at? So when we try to license it tomorrow, industries or other stakeholders are not really interested because there's no backing to that. So what is your take on this?
Okay, I'll give you my viewpoint on that. In terms of including AI in the part of the innovation, we've seen that in almost 40% of our startups, we do see AI as a component of what that overall use case is delivering. Okay, let's assume there's a certain task, a certain work unit that is completed by the use case, and there is some element of AI involved. Again, AI it's more, like I said, since OpenAI, ChatGPT, that basically brought AI to the forefront. But AI is not new. In technology, it's been used for many years. We've been doing research on it for 15, 20 years. And at this point, AI will become part of several inventions. How it is codified, how it is brought in to be unique, to be a novel application, and how foundational it is, right? If you're just using ChatGPT to do a translation and using that in your innovation, it's, like you said, the value is very close to zero. Right? But at the same point, if you do a very foundational model, if you use your own training data sets, if you create value with that model that you're doing, a custom model, that will definitely hold its value. All right, I'll give you an example. We have a startup in Africa that basically was trying to do ECG monitoring for their rural villages and rural patients. What they did was, if they found out very early in the process that if they actually use like OpenAI's data sets, or there are plenty of data sets that have like the Western parts of the world represented in the data set. They found out that that produces erroneous values for the African population. So they retrained those models, built a custom model that basically uses local data sets with local custom patient parameters. They found a lot of their accuracy increasing because of that. That is value add. That is localization, right? So those kinds of things will definitely have value, and it just purely depends on how you're implementing the overall process.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, because of agriculture, and which is very actual now, and we show it in the study I was mentioning before. For example, application of artificial intelligence in sensing and imaging is very actual, and it's one of the highest trends we see in digital agriculture. Equally, in health, we have seen a real jump of diagnostics. For example, being able, through diagnostic kit, to connect to the community and to AI to see which kind of bacteria are present, for example, in children in Africa, and be able to give targeted antibiotics. Just examples, but AI is definitely a major component of a lot of technologies that are advancing now.
Thank you. I think it's time to wrap up the session, and I would like to thank you, each one of you, for the wonderful insights that you had. And I want to leave each one of you with this thought that in this race of technological leadership, is your IP strategy an afterthought, or is it the one which is driving your growth, is an engine of your growth? So with that, thank you all. I think lunch is waiting for you all. So, yeah.
Thank you so much, dignitaries, for a wonderful, insightful session. May I now request to please step forward for a group photograph, please. Thank you. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, with this, we come to the end of this session. We would now be taking a break for lunch. We would again gather together for our next session starting from 2:15 onwards. Thank you.